have to say, as someone from New England, I like this semi-cloudy, slightly cool morning, which feels a little bit more like a June morning back home. There's a cartoon I used to have in my office when I was a midwife, and it showed a young couple about to leave the hospital with their new baby. They're loaded up with stuff and all the instructions that go with the stuff. A new car seat, packages of diapers and bottles and baby clothes. The baby's practically disappearing in the piles of stuff. The parents get to the hospital exit and seem to still be looking for something. And the nurse asks, "Is there anything else you need?" And the parents say in unison, one bubble above their heads, "You're sure you can't find the instruction manual for the baby?" We know there aren't instruction manuals for the most important things in life. How do I raise my child to be courageous and keep her safe? Do I want to marry this person? Do I want to stay married to this person? Am I ready to be a parent? How do I tell my family about, you can fill in the blank? There are lots of books. People make a lot of money selling us books and TV shows that manifest as instruction manuals. But when it comes to living our lives, when we walk out the exit door from the doctor's office, the courthouse, the casino, the emergency room, we are really left to rely on our own resources. So we use our memories, our minds, and our hearts to show us the way. Today, I want to explore the heart, your heart, and ask you to reflect on how love might be not only the spirit of this church, but the spirit and guiding principle of your life. What difference would it make if you decided to live by heart? To do something by heart, to sing a song, recite a poem, or play a piece of music, means to learn that thing so well it can be sung or recited or played without reading or without even thinking. It means to memorize. But we can't memorize things that have not and have never been written down. What to feel when someone you love is dying of cancer. What to say when your teenage daughter starts lying and staying out too late and you don't want to lose her. What to think when you find out your spouse is cheating on you. What to do when you find yourself still out of work after a couple years of looking for a job. In the ancient world, doctors and scientists, philosophers and theologians, who were all considered to be men of science, because the disciplines of science and theology and healing and history had not been separated into different disciplines yet. In that ancient world, the heart was understood to be the home of the soul and the seat of the intellect. Ancient philosophers had a vision of heart and head as one. The heart, your heart, was the home of your soul and your mind. No division of head and heart. We, descendants of those ancients, are called today not only to reform and progress, a liberal course of action, but to remember and reclaim the course of the conservative. So as a church who proclaims love as the spirit of this church, it's our duty to explore and understand the history of our own hearts. There is a problem, though. Why would you want to live by heart when you know so much can go wrong with the human heart? Aneurysms, anginas, blockages, ischemias and infections, pericarditis and pressure problems, strokes and syndromes. Knowing they're prone to break down, even to fail, it's fair to ask, why in the world would the heart be chosen as the seat of the soul? Is this a safe enough place for the soul to reside? In the heart? The ways hearts falter and fail are endless. They skip a beat, they lose a beat, or they beat too fast. You might say, Barbara, it's precisely failures of the heart that have taken our loved ones away from us. Well, to explain why in the world I would ask you to consider living by heart, I have to tell you a story this morning. It was a warm weekend in early June in New England, which means it was up in the 50s or maybe the 60s, when I got the call from Carol. She was pregnant with her first baby, and I'd been working with her as a midwife since the beginning of her pregnancy. Due in early July, around Independence Day, she was about 8 months when she called to say she hadn't felt the baby move in a couple of days. I told her I'd be right over. On the drive to her house, I had plenty of time to remember the prenatal visit when we heard Carol and Dan's baby's heartbeat for the first time. It usually happens around 20 weeks if you don't use ultrasound. But this baby must have had his back pushed up right against his mother's abdomen, because around 18 weeks, with my fetoscope balanced between my forehead and the stretched skin of Carol's belly, I heard it. Wait. And a simple smile stretched across my face as I looked up and said, "I hear it, Dan. Would you like to listen?" His eyes smiled as he nodded and concentrated hard as he worked to balance the midwife's tool between the bone of his forehead and the skin and muscle protecting and holding his baby. A tuning fork of sorts. A fetoscope amplifies the sound by allowing it to resonate through the bone of the listener's head. And I watched him as he focused in on the sound of life, the beating of his baby's heart. That June day, I also had my Doptone, a handheld device that uses ultrasound to find the heartbeat of the baby. No movement for several days was not a good sign. It could be that the baby was just very tired, that he'd been moving when Carol was asleep and she'd not noticed, but it was unlikely, as much as I wanted it to be so. I drove on and prayed for courage and wisdom. Funny that I prayed for courage, a word whose Latin root is cor, which in French becomes cœur and means heart. So here are a few things I've learned about the human heart. First, it's an organ that never rests. We tend to separate the physical and the metaphysical, the natural and the supernatural, but everything I've learned about the physical and the spiritual heart leads me to believe there's less of a separation between these worlds than we imagine. The heart is an involuntary muscle. The heart, your heart and mine, beats approximately 100,000 times a day, or 40 million times a year. It propels 2 gallons of blood per minute through your body, which means that while you're sitting here, your heart will pump 100 gallons of blood through your body. It beats all day, all night, all the time. The beating heart allowed me to work my way through seminary. When I stopped practicing midwifery to attend seminary, I began teaching to keep earning a living. I was hired to teach music in another class I created called Language and Culture. I love teaching music to kids. We listened to all kinds of music. We moved to the sounds we heard. We drew pictures as we listened, talked about how music made us feel, and learned to notice that the beauty of music depends on the silence in between the notes. We explored the concepts of beat and rhythm. When and where do you hear something with a steady beat? I'd ask the children. And with the help of a few pictures, they'd call out windshield wipers, a dripping faucet, the paddle of a canoe, an old-fashioned ticking clock. And then I'd ask, and what keeps a steady beat in your body? And with huge smiles on their faces, reflecting their dual awareness of having made a great discovery and of having the right answer, they'd shout out, almost always forgetting to raise their hands, my heart, right here, I can feel it, my heart. And then we'd listen, but they'd figure out pretty quickly that it's more a matter of feel. So we'd feel together for the beat of our hearts. You can try it now, if you'd like. We have to be very quiet to even try. We'd sit as still as we could. They'd start and touch their chests, as some of you are doing, where they knew their hearts were. Then they'd switch to their wrists, and then their necks. We'd all try to be still enough, to be patient enough, to be sensitive enough to feel the source of life within us. The embryonic heart forms and begins to beat on the 25th day after egg and sperm join together and start to multiply. No one knows for sure what makes that clump of fetal heart cells begin to beat. We only know that they do, and that when they do, they create their own new, distinct life rhythm. When I got to Carol and Dan's house, they're ready for me. Inside the door, we exchange big hugs, but few words. The bedroom is the most comfortable place for Carol to lie down, and it gives me space for my bag of tools, and allows Dan to be by Carol's side, holding her hand. I listen with the fetoscope, pushing hard into the muscle of the uterus, trying one side and then the other, moving to the top of the fundus and then the bottom, down just above the pubic bone. No luck with that, let's try the dot tone, I say. Carol describes the last few days, how active the baby had been on Thursday, and how he had quieted down Thursday night as usual, but then Friday, now that she looked back, she didn't think there'd been any movement on Friday. They'd been driving to visit relatives for the holiday weekend, so it was hard to be sure what with the preparations and the noise of the car and the distractions. But I don't think many of my young students were able to actually find and feel their own heartbeats. I don't know how successful you just were. After minutes of earnest effort, most would look up and say, "Yep, found it." Tired of sitting still, they were ready to move on to the next activity. But occasionally, I would see the flash of excitement and delight as a child did find and feel the miracle of the tiny, fist-sized machine inside her. Whereas another child closed his eyes to focus even more deeply on what he had found inside his own body. With all the technology of modern medicine, we still don't know what makes those cells start beating. We do know that heart cells pulsate unlike any other human cell. For example, if you were to put a heart cell in a petri dish with another heart cell, the two cells, without touching, will start to pulse together, synchronizing themselves. The 2, 3, 4, or more heart cells, still physically separate, will nevertheless unite in rhythm, becoming one. In his book called The Wet Engine, exploring the mad, wild miracle of the human heart, which is in part about his son who was born missing one of the 4 chambers of his heart, Brian Doyle writes, "God is not a person. God is not an idea. God is the engine. God is the beat. We're distracted by the word God. It gets in the way of the beat. Forget the word. It's only a word. Hashem, the name. So many names through the centuries of human beings trying to sing along with the beat. Gut, Koda, Kuda, Geu, Imu, Div, Thes, Diva, Dios, Deus, Theos, Dia, El, Ilu, Ila. So many words meaning the same thing. The center, the heart. Forget the name of the heart. Forget any and all images of the heart, perceptions, conceptions, instructions. Cease to try to understand. Just listen. Feel it humming, hammering, holy. Back home in Maine, I have a friend named Dave. Dave grew up in a very devout Catholic family. One brother became a priest. Another brother was killed in a fight outside a bar when he was in his early 20s. His parents turned or returned to God when they lost their son, but not Dave. The loss and the shock, the guilt and the pain pushed him away from the possibility of God's love being real. When I asked Dave, "Where is God?" he pointed to his head. "God's just an idea," he said. "Something all humans might be hardwired to believe in. An idea that might have helped us out as we evolved. But still, God's just an idea." That conversation, you can imagine, got me going. How interesting, I thought. Where do people find God or think about God being? They say that as we mature, our ideas about God also evolve. I wondered about this, and so I started doing an informal survey of sorts. When I asked my 18-year-old daughter, "Where's God?" she twirled her finger in the air, tracing a sort of spiral, and said, "I don't know, around, everywhere, moving." I continued to ask friends and family and fellow seminary students. My classmates were studying to become all manner of clergy, Episcopal priests, ministers in the Lutheran, Methodist, and Baptist church. Among the students was my friend Rosemary, a priest and bishop in the American Catholic Church, who's fought to find her own sense of self-worth in a religious tradition that has chosen, up until now, not to honor and respect her as she is: Catholic, devout, a leader, and a lesbian. When I asked my friend Rosemary, "Where is God?" she pointed right to her heart. Through her life of commitment to the one thing necessary, she's found the source of the infinite inside herself, in her heart. So if I asked you now, not "Where's God?" but "Where are you?" where would you point? So some of you who are pointing right here, a few people hesitated. You're not unlike human beings long ago, including the men and perhaps the women who wrote the books of the Hebrew and Christian Bibles, those ancients I was talking about at the beginning, who experienced and described consciousness and the sense of self as located in the center of the body, most often near to or within the physical heart. St. Gregory Palamas called the heart the shrine of the intelligence and the chief intellectual organ of the body. What if the heart is the home of your soul, and your heart-soul is the mind of your body? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We did not find a heartbeat that day in Carol and Dan's bedroom. The ultrasound waves picked up the ocean-like swishing sounds of the blood flowing through the arteries and veins of Carol's healthy body, but not the sounds of that tiny wet engine, the mad, wild miracle of that baby's tiny heart. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. This is the most basic of all prayers in the Hebrew Bible. The prayer stands at the foundation of the radical shift in culture that took place among the people of Israel toward what we call today monotheism, or the belief in the unity of God. After the prayer, which affirms a belief in the oneness of God, come these words: "You shall love the Lord God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might." Keep these words that I am commanding you in your heart. The Hebrew word for lev, the Hebrew word for heart, is lev. And it's drawn like this. The first letter is drawn like a shepherd's staff and represents authority, as the shepherd has authority over his flock. Make sense? The second letter is drawn like the floor plan of the nomadic tent and represents the idea of being inside, as the family resides inside the tent. Thus, when the two letters are combined to make the word lev, we read heart, or the authority within. Not your brain, the authority from above, but your heart, the authority within. The heart, the home of the soul, and the shrine of your intelligence. The end of Carol and Dan's story is that they went on to have 3 babies and 3 home births with me. We named and buried their first child together. And before I dreamed of becoming a minister, we had a memorial service in their backyard, where there's a fountain and a stone and an angel, all in honor of remembering who he was and how much he was loved. There is no instruction manual for life. When parents walk out of the door of the hospital with their new baby, or when you walk out the doors of this sanctuary today, you will have to rely on your own experiences, your own minds, and your own hearts to find your way. Life is more improvisation than memorization. In this community, you've already shown me in the few months I've been here that we can let our hearts break open and trust we will be carried along by the collective and unifying beat of billions and billions of heart cells, and survive, even thrive, as we dance together to a universal rhythm that might just be God's heartbeat. To affirm that we identify ourselves with our hearts and that God or the Great Spirit lives in our hearts, at the same time that we insist on remembering that our hearts will surely be broken, time and time again, is to live and be fully alive. This is to live by heart, not to memorize your part, because there is no script for your life, but to walk out the door of that exit door and call the person you need to call, confront the person you need to confront, thank the person you need to thank, forgive the person you need to forgive, hold accountable the person you need to hold accountable, knowing your heart will be broken and you can bear it. So listen to the beat, feel for it, dance and dream to it. One of the coolest things about our heartchitecture, as Doyle calls it, is that unlike other parts of the body that are weaker after they're broken, our hearts get stronger. So decide today, yes, I am willing to live by heart. Will you say that with me? Yes, I am willing to live by heart. And before we sing our last hymn, I want to share with you a little midrash, which is Hebrew, maybe for riff or improvisation or remix of Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. If I could speak Hebrew or Greek, Mandarin or Cantonese, Hindu or Urdu, but have not love, I'm nothing but Apple's latest language translation gadget. And if I got my PhD and could teach courses on the psychology and the sociology of religions and Unitarian and Universalist history and polity and feminist ethics and world religions, but don't have love, I'm nothing but an arrogant professor, perhaps at Phillips Seminary. And if I give away all I have, if I sacrifice my life for this country or for the Green Movement or for the anti-nuclear movement or the rights of GLBT people to marry or to campaign finance reform, but have not love, I have nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful, arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things. As a tree bears fruit, love brings new life. As the beam of a sanctuary bears the weight of the roof, love is strong and solid. As a friend comes bearing gifts, love is to be given away. As a parent bears the suffering of his or her children, love withstands suffering. As a man bears the betrayal of his wife, love withstands suffering. As a woman bears a child, love brings new life. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love lasts. Prophecies and tarot card readings, enneagrams, the fruits of psychoanalysis, even the almighty stock market, all these will fade away. For our ways of seeing are limited, our ways of speaking often harmful, and our ways of knowing hidden and obscure. We are imperfect, not whole. And when the perfect comes, we will be whole because that's what the word perfect means, whole. When I was a child, I wanted the biggest piece of cake on the tray, but I didn't want anybody to see me taking it. When I was a child, even simple games made me worry, and I wondered why we played games if everybody couldn't win. When I was 10, I wrote a poem called The Color of Love. Love is a wonderful thing and a mystery. It's hard and it's gentle and no one knows why. It can calm one and make one upset, but will always be with us for the rest of our lives. It's slow and it's fast, it's shy and it's bold, but will always be helping us, as we all should know. It reminds you of quiet and silence and peace, but it's sometimes so loud you can just hear it beat. It comes in all colors and never will stop. It grows and never will stop. Now I'm a woman and I've given up these childish ways. I no longer speak, think, or reason like a child. For now I know that even when I look in the mirror, what I see is but a faint reflection of myself. And I know that someday we will stand face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall understand fully, even as I am now fully understood. So faith, hope, and love abide. But the greatest of all three is love. May it be so for each and every one of us. Blessed be.